Number 1. Johanna Catherine Brighton. Johanna Catherine Brighton, age 38, went missing from Los Angeles, California on February 25, 1981 from Los Angeles, California. California Dodge states she went missing under suspicious circumstances. And that's all. When I come across these sorts of cases, where information is so minimal, I try to uncover additional details. While I don't always find any more information about their disappearances, I can usually find some tidbits of their lives prior to them going missing. I try to include this information in my posts whenever possible, because I think it helps to have a sense of who the missing person was. If we can't find them, at least we can memorialize them, so to speak, since everyone deserves to be remembered. In this case, I've come up empty, completely, frustratingly empty. I could not even tell if Brighton is a married name, or if she is single. No Johanna, of any surname, born on her birthday in California. No marriage of any Brighton to a Johanna in California or Nevada. No public records of a Johanna Brighton anywhere in the U.S. No criminal records, voter registrations, divorces, or property records could be found. The Los Angeles Times archives have no mention of her disappearance, although she apparently disappeared under suspicious circumstances. So, all I can do is speculate. I'm guessing she wasn't from California, possibly a tourist, maybe even from another country. She looks like she would be a really happy-go-lucky person, and for some reason I envision her as a waitress in an all-night diner type of place. No, I'm not psychic. I think she is reminding me of a waitress from TV, but I can't place who. Jolene from Alice, maybe? One encouraging thing is that she does have a DNA sample on file, which at least tells me that someone is looking for her. Who was this lovely lady, Johanna Brighton, who vanished over 30 years ago? Was she someone's mom, who simply left the house one day to run errands and never returned? Was she an aspiring actress who came to the showbiz capital of the world with hopes and dreams, only to fall into bad company? Whoever she is or was, I hope she is found soon. Number 2. Bertha Smith. Bertha Beatrice Smith, age 31, went missing from Phoenix, Arizona in 1944. Bertha Beatrice McGarry was born in Texas in 1913. She married Willie T. Dyer in 1931. Bertha and her husband had 5 children. In 1942, they divorced, and Bertha reportedly moved to Arizona and possibly married someone by the name of Smith. Something odd that I noticed: I found a birth record for one of her sons. His birth name is William Lee Stapleton. Parents are Bertha McGarry and W. T. Dyer. I wonder why Stapleton, and not Dyer. He was born in 1935. Bertha was last heard from when she wrote a letter to her family in 1944, stating that she was returning to Texas. Nobody ever heard from her again. There doesn't seem to be any information available as to what has already been done in investigating this case, but many ideas come to mind. If Bertha married someone named Smith in Arizona, there would be a record of it in the Arizona Marriage Index. Has this been checked? If she had any other children with Mr. Smith, that should be in public records as well. Was there a return address on the letter Bertha sent in 1944? If so, has the address been cross-checked to determine who was living there in 1944? This can be done via city directories. I'm sure the Phoenix Library has them. If there was no address, was there a zip code on the postmark? Did she already know someone in Arizona when she left Texas? It seems unlikely that a woman would travel to Arizona alone in 1944, with no family or friends waiting for her there. I could see Hollywood, maybe. But Phoenix? There could be any number of reasons why Bertha wrote that letter at that particular time. But of course, 1944 was right in the middle of WI. I don't think it's too far-fetched to consider that the war may have played a role in her decision. Possibly Mr. Smith had just enlisted, and Bertha wasn't prepared to wait for his return. Or maybe he was a casualty and his death prompted her to return to her family. It couldn't hurt to search through WI casualties, enlistments under the name Smith, just prior to the date of her letter. I wonder if there were any other clues in the letter, how she planned to get back to Texas, or any accounts of her time in Arizona. Bertha would be 100 years old now, so the chances of finding her alive are slim to none, but it's still possible to find someone who knew her, maybe a son or daughter, niece or nephew of Mr. Smith, who might be able to shed some light on what happened to Bertha. Number 3. The mysterious disappearance of Peter Winston. Peter Winston, age 20, went missing from New York, in January 1978. Strangely, Peter is not only missing from New York City, he is also missing from the missing world. By that, I mean the multitude of databases, forums, and social media pages that exist to generate publicity on missing persons cases. The mysterious disappearance of Peter Winston was brought to my attention by a wonderful member of Web Sleuths, who somehow managed to have Peter's case on his radar, despite the lack of publicity. Peter Winston, referred to as a child genius by those who knew him, took an interest in chess at a young age. In his early teen years, he played in tournaments and defeated some of the most seasoned adult players of the time. During his high school years, Peter lost interest in school, and developed an LSD habit. He also identified with radical far-left politics, and sympathized with the Soviets in the Cold War. It is believed that during this time, signs of mental illness were beginning to surface. Soon after starting college, Peter was hospitalized and diagnosed with schizophrenia. The diagnosis was later modified to manic depressive. He was put on medication, which he felt adversely affected his intellect, and his chess performance began to suffer. A friend of Peter's saw him the night before his disappearance, and recalled that Peter was in a deteriorated state, clearly off his medication, and insisting that his friend accompany him to the Meadowlands racetrack. His friend went with him, and watched as Peter lost race after race. Eventually, Peter's friend wanted to leave, but Peter stayed behind at the racetrack. Later that night, Peter called one of his chess rivals to request a ride home. While Peter knew the person he called, they were not friends, and apparently held some animosity toward each other from the chess competition. The man did not pick him up. As a last resort, Peter called his sister, who came and picked him up. She brought Peter back to her place for the night. The next morning, she offered to let him stay with her, but only under the condition that he see a doctor. Peter bolted out the door, screaming as he ran down the stairs. He left his ID at his sister's residence. He went to another friend's house, and stayed for lunch. During this visit, he said something about going to Texas to visit Walter Korn, a noted author of literature related to chess. He said that Korn was God. He left shortly after, and was never seen or heard from again. It has been theorized that he may have committed suicide, or possibly ended up in a mental institution. A severe blizzard hit New York City within 24 hours of Peter's last sighting, and he did not have a coat with him, so he may have succumbed to the elements. There has been no record of his existence since 1978. I would like to see him listed in databases, and hopefully a DNA sample obtained from his sister, so he can be compared to unidentified remains, and identified at some point. Note: I just went back and reread one of my sources, and now I see why Peter is not included in any of the databases. NYPD does not have a record of him being missing. The Observer, media outlet, was attempting to file one, but had not received a response from law enforcement as of July 2012. I am going to write to the Observer and see if they have any updates, and I will update this post if I get any additional information. Number 4. Tracy King. Tracy Ann King, age 14, went missing from Pennsylvania on July 8, 1975. Some sites say she disappeared from Mount Pleasant Township, while others state Littlestown is the city she was last seen in. Tracy was a resident of Hoffman Homes, also referred to as Hoffman House, at the time of her disappearance. Hoffman Homes was a children's home, which catered to youth with psychological or emotional problems. Most reports state that Tracy was last seen leaving the home, and it was believed that she had run away. She had run away from the home previously, but had always come back after not too long. This time, she was never seen again. Tracy's family was not notified that Tracy was missing until a week after her disappearance. Tracy had written letters to her family just prior to her disappearance, and did not seem to be upset with her family. She apologized for not writing more frequently, and for her messy handwriting, which apparently was not messy at all. Old newspaper articles tell slightly different versions of her disappearance. One article claims that Tracy did not leave the home alone. She and another teen, Stephanie, ran away at the same time. On July 11, 3 days after their disappearance, neither girl had been located. It is unknown if Stephanie is still missing. I would be very interested to know Stephanie's recollection of when and where Tracy was actually last seen. I hope law enforcement has spoken to her. Another article from the same newspaper states that Tracy had gone roller skating with a group of kids from Hoffman Homes, and it was then that she disappeared. I wonder if this was an outing to a skating rink, or if they were simply skating up and down the sidewalk in front of the residence. If she had gone missing while with a group of kids, one would think someone would have seen something, or at least seen her with the group, also contradicting the widespread account that she was last seen leaving the residence. Tracy's family does not believe that she would have disappeared voluntarily for more than a couple days. They state that she had no money, and was close to her sisters. I'm also curious as to where Tracy went the previous times that she ran away. Did she have a friend or relative that she stayed with, or was she just out roaming the city? Had Stephanie run away with her on the previous occasions, or had she gone alone? I truly hope she can be found alive, and I hope it can be confirmed when and where Tracy was actually last seen. I think it could answer many questions. Who had she come in contact with after leaving the home? What city was she actually last seen in? What date was she actually last known to be alive? What were her plans at that time? Tracy's mother is in her mid-70s now, and I would really like to see resolution for her. Number 5. Farron Stanberry. Farron Wade Stanberry, age 18, went missing from San Francisco, California in May or June of 1980. Farron was originally from Oregon, and was raised by his aunt and grandmother. In 1979, he decided that he wanted to venture out and explore the world, so he packed a bag and boarded a Greyhound bus headed for the East Coast. As he traveled, he kept his grandmother informed of his whereabouts, and he did so for the last time in May or June of 1980. He called his grandmother from San Francisco, California. He said he was happy there, living with a group of young men in a hotel. He had lost his job, however, and needed money. In fact, he had also spoken to his biological mother about sending him some of his money on the same day he last spoke to his grandmother. His mother had refused to send him any money. After his family did not hear from him again in the next few weeks, they called the San Francisco hotel where he had been staying, and were told that Farron had left abruptly, without paying his bill, and leaving his belongings behind. Online resources state that Farron was staying at the International Hotel. The International Hotel was a residential hotel at the intersection of Jackson and Kearny, in an area known as Manila Town. In looking up the International Hotel, however, I learned that it was non-operational in 1980. It was the subject of much dispute between the Filipino population, who called it home, and the city officials, who had planned a revitalization of the area. The last of its tenants were evicted in late 1977, and it remained vacant until it was demolished in 1981. I did a search in the Californian Unclaimed Property database, and found that Farron has a small amount of money from a bank account listed there. His address on that record was 1139 Market Street, apartment 218. Coincidentally, this address corresponded to the National Hotel, now a Budget Inn, which was also a residential hotel. I'm thinking the hotel in question was national, and not international. Farron's uncle was able to determine, after contacting the hotel where Farron was last seen, that he had been visiting a gay man there. The man later died of AIDS. Whether Farron himself was gay is unknown. This fact has me confused. Did he actually live in the hotel with a group of young men, but visit a gay man in a different room? Was the gay man one of the group of young men, or was there no group of young men, but just a gay man, and a confused Farron who, in those times, was not prepared to admit he was gay? Farron's uncle has been tirelessly pursuing the case of his missing nephew for all these years, and has not come any closer to a resolution. He has learned that Farron's missing persons report, which was filed in his hometown of John Day, Oregon, never made it to the San Francisco authorities, and they were unaware that he had gone missing in their city. Searches through death indexes, permit and license records, and databases have turned up no sign of Farron. Instead, according to Farron's grandmother, the people in the Justice Department in California are telling us now they don't think there's any way we'll ever find him. Farron's uncle traveled to the California Bureau of Identification, the state authority on identifying remains, but was told that nobody matching his description had come through there. Stanberry never contacted his loved ones again. After several weeks, they got in touch with the hotel and discovered he had left abruptly, leaving his possessions behind and owing rent. His family stated this was uncharacteristic of Stanberry's behavior. They believe he is deceased, but the circumstances surrounding his disappearance are unclear. Oregon police are investigating. Number 6. Benjamin Cannon. Benjamin Cannon, age 20, went missing from Omaha, in March 1995. He left a family residence after his mother caught him smoking pot in the basement. He did not return. A friend of Ben's told Ben's family that he had left with the Rainbow Family of Living Light, a modern-day hippie group. The Rainbow Family holds large annual gatherings in national forests around the country each July, along with smaller regional gatherings at various times of the year. Personally, I am a bit skeptical of the Rainbow Family theory. It seems unusual to me that a friend of Ben's would know that he left with this group, but not know the who, how, or where. The Rainbow Family hadn't held any recent gatherings in Omaha that I could find, and the internet was still in its infancy and far from being commonplace in homes. How would Ben have known about the Rainbow Family? Where did he plan to meet them? How was he going to get there? Who introduced him to the group? While I am skeptical, based on what I've read, I certainly don't dismiss it as a possibility. Some sites that profile Ben's disappearance, including the Nebraska State Patrol's official site, refer to the Rainbow Family as a religious cult, although after doing extensive reading on the group, it does not appear to be a cult. From what I have read, the Rainbow Family does not have any leadership or membership, and its gatherings are their only function. The gatherings are held in U.S. national forests, and consist of a one-week campout. Food is provided through donations, and luxuries such as crafts, and even Snickers bars, are bartered. I would equate it to an annual reenactment of the original Woodstock. Outside of the gatherings, however, it appears that most attendees have homes, jobs, and families. The Rainbow Family does not financially support people throughout the year. They don't maintain safe houses, and it doesn't appear that their gatherings are frequent enough that one could survive just by attending gatherings. The gatherings do attract problems, though. Because of the lack of facilities in the national forests where they gather, human waste is a problem, and has led to many attendees ending up in the emergency room. The group also tends to attract unsavory characters, as many large gatherings do. I have read of a few people turning up deceased during the gatherings, although the majority of these were from natural causes. An annual gathering was held in the Carson National Forest in northern New Mexico in July 1995. 4 months after Benjamin Cannon disappeared. The Carson National Forest encompasses several wilderness areas, including the Pecos Wilderness. In 2009, a set of partial remains, belonging to a white male, age 22-49, was located in a forest area in Taos. Although the Carson National Forest isn't mentioned specifically, and was believed to have been there for quite a while, the Carson National Forest is partially in Taos. The remains did not match anyone from the local area who had been reported missing, and are still unidentified. It is also mentioned that a skull was located in the same area in 2006, but investigators have not been able to confirm that the two findings belong to the same person. I will submit this possibility to NAMUS, and will update if I receive any additional information. In researching the Rainbow Family, I also came across a fairly new Facebook page called Rainbow Families Most Wanted. Several people have posted information on their missing loved ones, who they believe may have ties to the group. There is also information warning others of certain people who have committed crimes against them, or caused problems for the group. I think this would be a great place for Ben's family to post an inquiry. Hopefully they stumble onto my blog and see this. I also wonder if Ben would have been attracted to the grunge scene in Seattle at the time. It was still a popular spot for a young man to be in 1995. Despite the beginning of the grunge decline, law enforcement refused to accept a missing persons report for several years after Ben went missing, which is unfortunate. People who may have been acquainted with him then may not remember much now, and people who may be acquainted with him now may not recognize him from photos dated 18 years ago. Ben, if you're out there somewhere, please know that your family misses you and would love nothing more than to hear that you're okay. Number 7. Desiree Lenahan. Desiree Lenahan, age 30, went missing from Germantown, MD on April 24, 1989. This case is bizarre. According to NAMUS, Desiree was reported missing when she failed to show up for work at Remax, at 6 Montgomery Village Avenue, Gaithersburg, MD. RE/MAX is a large real estate chain. Her car, a 1985 beige Hyundai two-door, disappeared with her. Her live-in boyfriend said that Desiree had left a note, stating that she had been stealing money from her employer, and was leaving, with no mention of a destination. She loved him, goodbye. Searching through newspapers brought no mention of Desiree, or of her disappearance. A search of county records indicated that a judgment was entered against her for a minor unpaid tax bill, but there is no sign of a criminal record. There is an item from 1992, 3 years after her disappearance, which appears to be her family petitioning for guardianship of her estate, as she did own property. I also found it odd that the profile only states what her boyfriend said, not that I have any reason to suspect her boyfriend of any wrongdoing, but did law enforcement actually see the note, or confirm whether RE/MAX had indeed found that they were victims of theft? 25 years later, where is her 1985 Hyundai? Has it been sold, impounded, or junked? Did she leave the country, never to contact her boyfriend, friends, or family again? Did she leave, only to have something happen to her later? Did she never leave voluntarily? Was she classified as a fugitive, thus her loved ones knowing but not wanting to tell authorities where she was? Anything is possible with the little information available, but I wanted to get her name and face out there, since there seems to be no coverage of this case whatsoever. Come home soon, Desiree.